Imagine the oceans emptied, the tides reversing, the water slipping away mile after mile until the seabed lies bare beneath the open sky. Where the waves once rolled, patterns begin to appear. Terraces, channels, long shadows that seem too perfect to be chance. For centuries, we've dreamed of what might be hidden beneath the sea. Lost civilizations, mysterious ruins, the ghost of Atlantis itself. We cannot truly drain the oceans, but today, with sonar, mapping, and new underwater technology, we can pierce the depths and turn data into living images. And suddenly, the unseen world rises before us. Is this a vast temple carved by a forgotten people? Why do perfectly circular stones rest at the bottom of the Aegean? And could the real site of Atlantis finally be revealed? Stories of sunken cities have haunted humanity for thousands of years. The most famous of all began as a warning, a tale told by the philosopher Plato of a dazzling civilization destroyed by the gods as punishment for human pride. Atlantis, a utopia that rose from brilliance and drowned in arrogance. 2,000 years later, that story still captivates archaeologists and dreamers alike. It lives on in science and cinema, in curiosity and in hope. But today's explorers search not through myth, but through measurement. By scanning the ocean floors, they uncover new evidence of lost cities and of the immense natural powers that shape our planet. Now, we travel east to the far edge of Japan, where deep beneath the waves lies one of the most extraordinary mysteries ever found. Far off the coast of Japan lies Yonaguni, a small island where the Pacific meets the East China Sea. The waters here are restless, swept by strong currents and patrolled by hammerhead sharks. For divers, it is a place of danger and wonder. One day, while searching for a new diving site, a man descends into the clear blue depths. What he sees stops him cold. Beneath him rises a formation of stone, massive, tiered, almost architectural. Steps upon steps, terraces like those of a mountain city. It reminds him of the ruins of Machu Picchu, only this place lies far below the waves. He calls it the submarine ruins. The structure stretches wider than 5 football fields. Sheer walls rise as tall as an 8-story building. Flights of stone steps climb upward from the seafloor. Everything appears ordered, deliberate, precise. Could nature truly have made something so perfect? Soon, scientists arrive with sonar scanners and high-resolution mapping equipment. Their instruments trace every contour, every angle. When the data is rendered in 3 dimensions, the monument seems to emerge from the ocean like an island reborn. Its scale is breathtaking, vast, symmetrical, majestic. Among the first to explore the site is marine geologist Masaki Kimura. To him, the evidence feels undeniable. He points to pathways that seem to lead somewhere, to platforms shaped like turtles, sacred creatures in Japanese mythology, guardians of the dragon god Ryujin and his underwater palace. There is even a triangular basin that could have served as a warm, shallow pool, perfect for rest after a dive into colder depths. The wide terraces, he suggests, might once have supported gatherings of people, perhaps even a royal court. Kimura searches for proof, something that can anchor his theory in fact. He discovers fragments of what could be primitive tools, and on one smooth wall, a small carved symbol beside a hole, as if something once hung there. A charm, maybe. A talisman meant to ward off evil. For him, the mystery is solved. These were the remains of a man-made monument built 8,000 years ago, long before the pyramids of Egypt. A city of stone swallowed by the rising seas. But other scientists see something else. They study the scans, the textures of the rock, the way the edges run perfectly smooth and unbroken. These are not individual blocks stacked together. They are part of a single solid mass. The answer lies on land. The cliffs of Yonaguni are made of the same sandstone. When earthquakes strike, the rock fractures along clean vertical lines, forming natural steps and sharp angles. Over time, waves wash away the debris, leaving behind forms that look eerily human in design. There are no tool marks, no walls, no pottery, no evidence of habitation. Just the slow work of geology mistaken for the craft of civilization. And yet the illusion endures. Even knowing the truth, one look at those submerged terraces, and the mind cannot help but imagine a forgotten city. A place where people once walked, now preserved in silence beneath the sea. Far across the seas from Japan, in the warm blue waters of the Mediterranean, lies another mystery. One that begins not with a scientist, but with a photographer. Off the island of Zakynthos, in Greece, a diver named Pavlopetri slips into the shallows of Atlantis Bay. He's there only to take pictures of fish, seaweed, the rocky seabed beneath the sunlight. He swims farther out in search of clearer water. And then, through the haze, he sees something that makes him stop. The seabed below him is littered with strange shapes, perfect circles, smooth disks, and flat stone patterns stretching for hundreds of yards in every direction. They look nothing like the surrounding rocks. They look built. The discovery spreads quickly. Archaeologists and journalists arrive, each drawn by the same question. Could this be the remains of a lost city? Among them is Professor Michael Stamatakis, a Greek geologist. When he first sees the photographs, he too believes they might be man-made. Perhaps the foundations of ancient buildings. He recalls seeing similar shapes carved in stone at ruins on land dating back thousands of years. Soon, a specialist in underwater mapping, Simon Brown, is called to the site. Using thousands of high-resolution photographs, he builds a three-dimensional model of the seabed. When the images are complete, it feels as if the water has been drained away. The shapes stand out sharply against the sand, smooth circular bases, flat pavements, patterns that could once have formed streets. If these were column bases, they would mark a significant discovery. In ancient Greece, the shift from wooden columns to stone was a revolution in architecture, a moment when temples and great civic spaces began to rise across the Mediterranean world. But something about the material doesn't fit. When divers touch the stone, it crumbles slightly under their hands. It's too soft to have supported buildings. Laboratory tests confirm the truth. These are not remnants of human construction at all. They are concretions, natural formations created by ancient volcanic activity. Deep beneath the seabed, methane once bubbled up through layers of sediment. As it mixed with minerals and microbes, it hardened into circular shapes, beautiful, regular, and deceptively symmetrical. These formations are millions of years old, far older than any human civilization. What looks like the ruin of an ancient town is, in fact, the sculpture of chemistry and time. And yet, for Pavlopetri, who first saw them, that explanation feels incomplete. To him, they still seem too deliberate, too strange. He imagines temples and walls, the homes of people long vanished. Perhaps, he says, science hasn't found every answer. Perhaps something once stood here, before time erased the evidence. Even in the face of proof, belief lingers. We want to see meaning in the mysterious, order in the random, humanity in the patterns of stone. Because deep down, we want to believe that something of ourselves lies hidden beneath the waves, waiting to be found again. On the southern coast of Greece, where the turquoise sea brushes quiet beaches, lies a small island called Elafonisos. At first glance, it seems ordinary, a fishing village, a stretch of sand, waves lapping gently at the shore. But just beneath the surface, less than 100 yards from land, something extraordinary rests in the shallow water. In 1967, a young maritime archaeologist named Nicholas Fleming was snorkeling there when he noticed a series of straight lines on the seabed. He swam closer and realized they weren't natural at all. They formed streets, walls, outlines of buildings. He had found a city. The following year, he returned with a team of surveyors and began to map the area. What they discovered changed archaeology forever. Across the seabed lay pottery, storage jars, grinding stones, and even ancient graves, clear signs of a once living community. They called it Pavlopetri, after a nearby islet. This was no illusion of rock or coincidence of geology. Pavlopetri was real, the remains of a thriving Bronze Age town preserved in the sand. Years later, a new generation of archaeologists returned to the site with advanced mapping technology. What they saw was astonishing. When the digital water drained away, the layout of an entire town appeared. 20 acres of streets, courtyards, and open squares. At its center, a large open area, perhaps a marketplace. Nearby, the foundations of a great public building. It was clear that Pavlopetri had been home to hundreds, maybe thousands of people. Archaeologists uncovered amphorae for wine and oil, loom weights for weaving, grinding stones for flour. Pottery fragments revealed that the town was inhabited continuously for over 2,000 years, from the end of the Stone Age, around 3500 BC, until roughly 1100 BC. In its prime, Pavlopetri was alive with trade. Ships came to its sandy shores to exchange olive oil, wine, and cloth. There were no harbors built of stone in those days, only natural sandbanks where vessels could be beached. Pavlopetri's position made it a perfect hub in the web of Mediterranean commerce. It wasn't just a place of trade, but of industry. Thousands of loom weights found on site suggest a large-scale textile workshop, far beyond domestic use. The people here were producers and merchants, part of the first truly connected world. But what ended it all? No records, no ancient texts, no myths tell the story. The city simply vanished beneath the waves. Geologists searching the seabed found the answer written in rock. Along the edges of the ancient town lie 3 distinct lines of beach rock, each formed where sunlight meets shallow water. Each line marks a former shoreline, and each one lies lower than the last. The pattern is unmistakable. Earthquakes struck, one after another, and with each tremor the land sank further into the sea. Slowly, over centuries, the city was swallowed. No flood myths, no divine punishment, only the restless motion of the earth itself. Today, Pavlopetri stands as one of the oldest known submerged cities in the world, and one of the best preserved. Its streets still trace a clear plan. Its rooms still hold the story of ordinary lives, of trade, craft, love, and loss. Here, for the first time, a sunken city truly speaks. Not through legend, but through evidence. Not imagined, but real. And yet, for all its certainty, Pavlopetri rekindles the same ancient question. If a real city could disappear so completely, could Atlantis have done the same? The legend of Atlantis has haunted the human imagination for more than 2,000 years. It began as a story told by the philosopher Plato, a tale of a brilliant civilization that rose in power and arrogance, defied the gods, and was destroyed in a single day and night of storms and earthquakes. For centuries, explorers, dreamers, and scholars have searched for the lost island he described. Some placed it in the Caribbean, others beneath the Antarctic ice, others still beneath the sands of the Sahara. But most paths lead back to the sea that inspired the story, the Mediterranean. At its western edge lies a gateway the Greeks called the Pillars of Heracles. known today as the Strait of Gibraltar. Here, at the meeting of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, a geophysicist named Marc-André Gutscher set out to search for answers. He studied Plato's words carefully. The philosopher wrote of an island beyond the pillars, in front of the straits, from which a mighty power once came forth. Gutscher believed that if Atlantis ever existed, this is where it would be found. Off the northern coast of Morocco, near Cape Spartel, lies a shallow submerged bank, an underwater plateau that may once have been above the surface. Using robotic cameras and sonar scans, Gutscher began to map the seafloor. The work was difficult. Powerful currents swept through one of the busiest shipping routes in the world, making it hard to keep equipment steady. But eventually, the data began to take shape. When the digital water was drained away, a landscape appeared, an island rising from the deep, just where Plato described. Could this be the lost Atlantis, hidden for 11,000 years? Plato had written that Atlantis was destroyed by earthquakes and floods. The newly mapped island lies on a fault line where massive tectonic plates collide, a place where earthquakes are common and tsunamis can strike with devastating force. It's easy to imagine how a powerful sequence of tremors might have torn such an island apart, dragging it beneath the waves. Perhaps the legend began with memories of such a disaster, a real island struck by quakes, swallowed by the sea. The geology fits the story. But when scientists examined the scans in detail, the evidence they needed most was missing. There were no walls, no streets, no foundations, no geometry of human design. The island, for all its mystery, was bare rock. If Atlantis ever stood here, it left no trace. Yet even without stone ruins, the seafloor still tells a story. When the last ice age ended, sea levels rose by more than 100 meters. Entire coastlines vanished. The people who once lived along those shores, early farmers, hunters, and traders, lost their lands forever. Their homes, their tools, their villages were drowned, leaving behind only stories. Stories of floods, of punishment, of worlds beneath the sea. Almost every culture on Earth carries a flood myth. Perhaps Atlantis is simply one of them. Not the record of a single lost city, but a memory shared by all humanity, echoing from the time when the waters rose and the world changed. The myth endures because it speaks to something universal. It reminds us that civilization is fragile, that nature has always had the final word, and that the boundary between land and sea is never truly fixed. Atlantis may belong to myth, but the idea of a city swallowed by the sea is not confined to the ancient world. Today, the same forces that once reshaped coastlines are at work again. Only now, the rising water is our doing. Across the planet, the oceans are climbing higher. Each year, a little more land disappears. The same story that played out in prehistory, of loss, of retreat, of human vulnerability, is unfolding once more in our own time. Great port cities, built on trade and ambition, now stand at the edge of a new uncertainty. Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh City, Dhaka, each one facing tides that creep a little closer every season. And on the banks of the Mississippi River in the American South lies one of the most fragile of all, New Orleans. The city sits below sea level, protected only by a network of levees and floodwalls. For centuries, it has lived in defiance of the water that surrounds it, the river on one side, the Gulf of Mexico on the other. In 2005, that fragile balance was broken. Hurricane Katrina struck with terrifying force. Storm surges overwhelmed the defenses, and the levees gave way. In a matter of hours, 80% of the city was underwater. Nearly 2,000 people lost their lives. Tens of thousands more were left homeless. When the waters finally receded, New Orleans seemed changed forever. But the danger never truly passed. The ground beneath the city continues to sink. not through myth or punishment, but through human action. The pumping of groundwater, the softening of the delta soil, the gradual subsidence of land. Every year, the city edges a little closer to the sea. Scientists warn that by the turn of the next century, large parts of New Orleans could be uninhabitable. Rising seas and stronger storms will test every defense we build. And yet, like the people of Atlantis in Plato's tale, we continue to expand and rebuild in places the ocean has already claimed as its own. Perhaps that is why the legend endures. Atlantis is not just a story about the past. It is a mirror held up to the present. It reminds us that our achievements, no matter how great, stand on borrowed ground. Someday, centuries from now, divers may swim where our cities once stood. They will drift through the outlines of our streets, the skeletons of our towers, the remnants of our bridges. They will see our geometry, our order, our ambition, and they will wonder who we were and why we built so close to the edge. The oceans remember everything. Beneath their surface lie worlds both imagined and real, the natural and the human, the ancient and the yet to come. We have always been drawn to the sea, and the sea has always taken part of us with it. Beneath the waves, the past waits in silence, and perhaps so does the future.